Hello everyone, and welcome to the tastiest Nuzlocke you've ever seen. It's no secret that people eat Pokémon, but the full extent of it is truly unknown. What is known, however, is that exploiting Pokémon for their tasty meat and other associated byproducts is wrong. We here at the SPCP believe that Pokémon should not be murdered and eaten, they should just be forced into a life of slavery and combat. And with that in mind, we'll be liberating as many edible Pokémon as possible and trying to see if we can become champion of the Kalos Pokémon League with our team of tasty treats. Oh, and this will be a hardcore Nuzlocke, so that means we can't overlevel past each gym leader's Ace, and any Pokemon that faints is gone for good. Other rules can be found in the description. What their fate is after they go down, I'll leave up to your imagination. As far as what we consider an eligible, or edible encounter in this case, we're sticking with any Pokemon that is known or implied to have either itself or a byproduct that it produces be enjoyed by humans in the Pokemon universe. Any Pokemon that are explicitly modeled after foods are also fair game. In Kalos, that gives us 9 potential encounters, plus 1 extra mon that I'll talk about once we get rolling. Can we win, or will we get cooked? Stick around to find out. Now that all the rules and admin are out of the way, we come to our first hurdle. The very first edible encounter in the game is a trade Farfetch'd that you can receive in Santaloon City in exchange for a Bumblebee. Easy enough to do, but this takes us through quite a bit of the game up to this point using only Froakie, who despite the fact that Kalos is based on France, isn't known to be commonly eaten by humans. This is often unavoidable at the beginning of restricted Pokemon Nuzlocks, and we do have to do a couple fights with the inedible little frog, but luckily I stumble upon an extremely rare glitch when we arrive in Santaloon City. When we get there and enter the Pokemon Center for the first time, I notice something odd about the PC. There seems to be a level 5 Krabby named Rangoon waiting for me, who has been rescued from a neighboring region by some like-minded Pokemon-loving individuals. Some people might say that I should ignore this glitch and play with Froakie instead, since typical Nuzlocke rules state that glitches and exploits aren't usable in the run. Those people I say that this little crab, who has lived a trying life fraught with peril and persecution already by the young level of 5, deserves as much of a chance as anyone. Also, just for the record, despite his absolutely ridiculous attack stat, he doesn't get a single stab move that uses this attack until level 46, and generally has a pretty terrible moveset, meaning he likely won't move the needle too much later on into the run. Some people might also say that Krabby's Pokédex entries never mention it being a food source, but Ash seemed legitimately worried that Professor Oak was eating his Krabby that one time in the anime, and that's good enough for me. With little Rangoon in our party, the run can start properly, which means it's time for us to completely skip that Farfetch'd I mentioned earlier and try to solo the first gym. This might sound completely crazy, since having a flying type to deal super effective damage and resist infestation would be a godsend in the bug gym of all places, but the trade Farfetch'd is named Quacklin, which honestly just isn't good at all, so we're going to try and delay that encounter if possible. If I die and have to restart the run, we'll probably pick him up, but I'd like to find my own duck later if that's at all possible. Sure, sitting through this early game again would be brutal, but it just might be worth it. Clearing through the trainers in the Santaloon City gym, we learned that not overleveling Rangoon is going to be tough, what with the XP boost that comes from being a foreign rescue. We managed to stay just under the level cap though, and come up to our first boss of the game, Viola. Her Surskit is no problem, going down to 2 Vice Grips while just setting up Water Sport and hitting a weak Quick Attack. This means we're relatively healthy and feeling good when Vivillon comes out. Things start out great when we get hit with a soft tackle and retaliate with a Vice Grip that does around a quarter of her health. The good vibes change a bit when Vivillon decides to go for Infestation on the next turn though, wiping out a good third of our health and setting us up to take chip damage the rest of the fight. A quick look at her health bar tells me that it'll take 2 shots for a kill, and landing the first one will likely lead to her healing with a potion, meaning we're definitely dead to infestation damage. This means our only play is to hit a Leer and pray that we don't get hit with back-to-back infestations, which will end the run and send us back to the beginning of the game. Rangoon's shell armor ability does make us immune to critical hits though, making this a little bit safer of a play than it might otherwise appear. Luckily for us, Viola decides to only hit us with another tackle, which leaves us with 8 HP. If you recall, earlier in the fight Infestation did 7 damage, meaning that it is possible for us to survive, but a high roll Infestation would mean the end of little Rangoon and our chances of winning on the first attempt. I click Vice Grip one last time and hold my breath, expecting the worst, but Rangoon managed to hang on with only 1 HP, salvaging this attempt and teaching me a very big lesson about preparation. Looking back at this footage, even something as simple as an Oranberry could have made this exponentially less stressful. As a first-time Nuzlocker, there is a lot to learn, and the importance of proper preparation cannot be understated. It won't shock anyone who has attempted one themselves, but there's a lot of background prep going on that you never see on screen. We did manage to escape on time, but let's hope it never gets that close again. Deathless run still intact, we move on. Oh, and it turns out using a walkthrough of only the critical path to guide the run, since I haven't played this game ever since it came out, and I felt really stupid when I walked to the right after beating the gym, and came across a route where I can catch a Farfetch'd who is allegedly delicious when cooked with their leek, which they canonically need to survive. Gruesome. Game knowledge truly is a Nuzlocker's greatest weapon. Either way, we gladly welcome Confi to the team and go prepare for the next gym. A quick addendum for any truly eagle-eyed watchers out there. We did in fact catch this Farfetch'd on Route 22, which is also the only possible location for Carvanha and Sharpedo in Pokémon X. However, I'm bending the rules ever so slightly to allow this, since we can get a Farfetch'd in Santoline City through the trade I mentioned earlier, so I essentially tagged this one in for that one to allow for the nickname to be on theme. If this really bothers you for some reason, firstly, consider that for a moment. But also, pretend I'm saying Quacklet instead of Confi and let me know how discontented you are in the comments. Oh, and Confi has an attack IV of 1 compared to Quacklet's 27, so we really are coming out behind here. There's a whole lot of nothing between the first and second gyms. We'll revisit castles to learn about Mega Evolution, but I don't think we'll even get a chance to do that in this run. We do manage to pick up one more encounter though, a Swirlix we named Candy Joe. My first impression is that the so-called cotton candy Pokemon looks pretty useless and is impossible to evolve without trading, but it's unironically about to come in handy at the second gym, so we'll let it slide for now. Travel after this is fairly uneventful, save for a close call in the double battle against Tierno and Trevor, where Tierno's Corphish absolutely could have taken out Rangoon if they decided to double up. But with our luck holding out for now, we move on to the Rock Gym. Unlike the first gym, we can leave midway through anytime we want, so it is possible to just take out the trainers one by one, healing in between, which means there's little danger until we make it all the way to Grant. His Amara opens up by paralyzing us with Thunder Wave, which isn't awesome, but we do knock it out with one quad-effective Metal Claw, bringing out his ace Tyrantrum. We dodge the flinch and paralysis to land a solid Metal Claw for just under half his HP and damage after he hits us with a bite, and repeat the same process in the next turn, landing Grant's ace in the red. We take this opportunity to switch into Candy Joe in the next turn when Grant heals, leaving us with a favorable type matchup. Luckily, we only get flinched once, and there are no critical hits, because either of those could have ended this run in a complete wipe, since I really doubt Confi would have been able to come in and finish the job. After talking about needing better preparation, I naturally completely fail to prepare better and give my Pokemon any berries or anything heading into the second gym. Let's keep this going and see how long my luck holds out. There are no new encounters between the second and third gyms, and with some careful play for once, we arrive safely in Shallor City ready for the rival fight with Serena. We do have type advantages over 2 for 3 Pokemon, so I'm hoping this one shouldn't be too bad. We lead with Rangoon, the plan here being to just overpower her with our strongest Mon and then clean up the last couple with our favorable type matchups. Shows with a Fake Out, like always, doing a tiny bit of chip damage before we clap back with a Rock Tomb on the next turn to lower her speed. We hit a Strength to bring her down into yellow health, and Serena retaliates by hitting a Disarming Voice, bringing us below half and activating our held Citrus Berry. On the next turn, we finish Meowstic with another Strength, bringing out Quilladin. My risk-taking ass assumes we won't die to a Needle Arm, so we stay in to hit a Leer before presumably switching out. This works much better than intended, since Serena only goes for a bite, dealing just 12 damage. Some quick mental math tells me that unless she gets a high roll on Needle Arm next turn, we should also survive one more hit, since we can't get hit with a critical, so we stick around to nail Quilladin with the Strength, dealing over half her health. My miraculous streak of going unpunished for risky play continues as she just goes with another bite, allowing us to finish Quilladin off with another Strength on the next turn. Now I finally decide I've played fast and loose with Rangoon's life long enough, opting to take the smart play and switch into Candy Joe as Absol comes in. Candy Joe eats a quick attack on the switch, taking another on the next turn as well before nailing a massive Draining Kiss and healing up all the way nearly to full HP. All Absol can do on the next turn is hit another limp quick attack, leaving us open to land the final hit, winning the fight, and setting me up for a massive fall whenever my luck finally runs out. Until that happens though, we have a gym to take on. We can finally grab a couple more encounters after this gym as well, which should give us a bit more breathing room moving forward. As for the gym itself, easy sweep with Candy Joe the Swirlix. Probably something nobody has ever said before. We use a combination of Fake Tears and Draining Kiss to one-shot both Mienfoo and Machoke. In the interest of staying healthy between turns, we just hit Hawlucha with 2 more Draining Kisses before it went down, winning a Sneezy Gym Badge. We did risk one critical at the very end with Hawlucha's Flying Press, since Machoke had lowered our defense, but I felt like the risk of switching out and back in while Hawlucha could have powered up more just seemed like a bad idea. I'm confident if we'd lost Candy Joe there, Rangoon could have picked up the slack and finished the fight, but I'm glad we didn't have to find out. Also, it is worth noting that Candy Joe has kind of carried the team a couple times now, and I take back any Swirlix slander from a few seconds ago. Now, as promised, we get to make some additions to the team. I delay the encounter in Route 12 and head to Azure Bay to catch a Slowpoke named Stew, whose tails are edible and apparently are a common ingredient in Alolan cooking. Slowpokes can regenerate their tails, but can you imagine living in captivity so someone can harvest and eat your body parts, keeping you alive only so they can continue to dine on their flesh? The Slowpoke abuse must be stopped. Since we're playing this Nuzlocke with duplication clause, meaning that each Pokemon can only be encountered once, catching a Slowpoke in Azure Bay means we're guaranteed a Miltank in Route 12. Miltank has long been a slave to humans who feast on its milk without a second thought. Picking up the Good Rod also opens up 2 other encounters, granting us access to a Clauncher on Route 8, prize for their delicious claw meat, who we named Scampy, and a Corphish at Parfume Palace, who we named Cakes. Also, I don't know why this isn't in the script, but we named the Miltank Cheese Curd. Now, those of you who are avid Pokedex raiders might wonder why we've included the Corphish line as an edible Pokemon encounter when Crawdon's Pokedex entries specifically mention how gross its meat smells, calling it, quote, utterly nasty and stinking. To that I reply, we live on a planet where people willingly eat durian, a fruit famed for smelling completely horrendous yet having surprising nutritional value. That is to say, the fact that comments are even being made about the meat of poor Crawdons should be enough to tell you that someone out there is definitely eating them and we need to save them too. Justice does not discriminate against the smelly. That about does it for our mid-game encounters, meaning it's time to take our admittedly water-heavy team over to Coumarine City for the next rival fight. Serena hasn't changed her team at all since the last one, so we should be in for a relatively easy time. We'll lead with Cakes in his debut battle, since he threatens super effective damage and is immune to crits, making him a perfect answer into Meowstic. We protect on turn 1 to avoid the fake out, and then hit a massive knockoff in turn 2, though it doesn't get the kill because Serena doesn't use held items, which would boost knockoff's power. We do get hit with a super effective disarming voice in return, but Meowstic isn't exactly a powerhouse, so we're not in any real danger right now. On turn 2, I click Vice Grip for some inexplicable reason, which doesn't get the kill, meaning we take another completely unnecessary hit en route to getting the kill next turn. This goes unpunished because our Citrus Berry helps us recover, so we're in no real danger, especially because Cakes also has shell armor, but it was still a completely stupid play. It's not like I needed the power points or she was going to switch in a Pokemon with Justified or something, so there was no reason to do it. It doesn't make any real difference because I was going to switch out to Confi to deal with Quilladin anyways, who gets an easy kill with a Swords Dance Fly combination. We don't have any perfect answers to Absol right now since Candy Joe is stuck at level 34 and we don't want to overlevel in case we need him during the next gym fight, so I switch in old reliable Rangoon, who can just overpower the always underwhelming Absol safely without fear of critical hits. That leaves us safe to enter the gym, so our battle with Ramos is up next. The original plan is to set up a sweep with Confi, but then the reality that she's a Farfetch'd sinks in pretty quick when an Acrobatics from Jump Bluff hits us way harder than we anticipated, and in combination with a Leech Seed means we have to switch out to Cheese Curd, making her first on-screen appearance. And what an appearance it is. We get somewhat lucky when Ramos' Jump Bluff refuses to hit us with another Leech Seed, so we're free to raise Cheese Curd's attack with Power Up Punch, heal with Milk Drink, and eventually take the KO with a Body Slam. His ace Go-Goat comes out next, but he's no match for our beefy gal, who is able to heal off his attacks with ease, powering up one more time then taking the knockout with another Body Slam. Last is Weepinbell, but it just goes down in a single Zen Headbutt, winning us a pretty easy gym battle, netting us the 4th badge and letting us go down the slide, which just looks like fun. We probably risked at least one crit there on account of me forgetting to replace Cheese Curd's Citrus Berry after she used it up against one of the gym trainers, but luckily the leaders in this game are just as dumb as I am, so yet again, we go unpunished. With the 4th gym badge weighing our pants down, we now have access to fly outside of battle, so it's time to hunt down a few TMs and held items that should help ensure we can stay ahead of things. So far, pretty good luck and Citrus Berry spam has kept us alive, but that really can't last forever, and we're going to need some concrete gains. I won't go into detail on every item in TM we pick up, but rest assured I'll be telling you that I forgot to give my Pokemon different items from now on instead of just Citrus Berries. For us to make it to the next gym without being ambushed by our rival, so we get to put all of our focus towards beating Clement, who hits the majority of my team for super effective damage. His level cap of 37 does grant us access to a couple evolutions, as we can turn Scampy into a Clawitzer and Stu into a Slowbro, but both of these guys will be riding the bench for this gym unless something goes horribly wrong, so in an ideal world they won't have any impact on this fight whatsoever. The plan is to stick with Cheese Curd and Candy Joe, both of whom take only neutral damage from electric type attacks and have methods of self-healing. My lead is Cheese Curd, who is quickly shaping up to be our best all-around answer to just about everything. Bulk recovery and a surprisingly diverse moveset make her a real force to be reckoned with. Predicting a Volt Switch from Clement's lead Emolga, we click the Power Up Punch, which is guaranteed to increase our attack for the rest of the fight no matter what, and will also hit both of Clement's other Pokemon super effectively. This works like a charm as he Volt Switches into Magneton, who we nail with a critical hit Power Up Punch. The crit doesn't really matter though, and we end him with a quad effective Bulldoze on the next turn. This brings out Clement's ace Heliolisk, who is very fast and does threaten Cheese Curd with a critical Thunderbolt. With our extremely electric weak team, we don't have a whole lot of options but to stay in and hit a Bulldoze. We avoid the crit and paralysis, taking Heliolisk out in one hit, boosted by our Power Up Punch and a Soft Sand. Back comes Emolga though, and while we should be safe to take one hit, I decide we've taken enough risks and switch out to Candy Joe, who should be safe to tank a few hits now that we've given him an Eviolite to hold on to. We hit a fake Tears to lower Emolga's special defense, tanking a soft Aerial Ace on the switch and a quick attack on the follow-up. We heal back up to nearly full HP with a Draining Kiss, dropping Emolga below half health and unfortunately also triggering Static in the process. We have no reason to switch out yet though, since we can definitely take a couple hits, so we click Surf. Emolga takes about a quarter of her health with a Volt Switch, then Candy Joe comes through in the clutch again, hitting through Paralysis and taking out Clement's last Pokemon, staying us the 5th gym battle in the process. This fight felt a lot cleaner than the rest of them, so I'm hoping we can ride that positive momentum through the rest of the game. Pretty much immediately after leaving Lumio City, we get roped into another fight with Serena, albeit this time Meowstic has picked up Psychic and she's finally evolved her starter into Chestnut. Meowstic still isn't much of a problem, and is handled pretty easily by Cheese Curd. We lower her speed with a Bulldoze on turn 1, getting hit with a Psychic in the process. Then we land a Body Slam, which puts her in range of one more hit and also scores a Lucky Paralysis, which ultimately doesn't make any difference, and she just claps back with a Disarming Voice for a little bit more damage. We finish off Meowstic with one more Body Slam, bringing out Chestnut. We might be able to stick around and keep Cheese Curd in, since Serena's Chestnut doesn't know a fighting type move at this point, but I decide to switch out to Candy Joe, who comes in on a surprisingly hard-hitting Seed Bomb. Lucky for us, Serena decided to start hitting ineffective bites for some reason, and we managed to stay healthy enough to take out her Chestnut with a few Draining Kisses. Since we don't heal up very much from the last one, I decide not to risk any crits from Absol and switch out to Rangoon, who takes the KO with just a couple of strengths. This leaves us just a couple minutes away from the Fairy Gym, and I've got a plan that I'm so confident in I don't even bother leveling up any of my Pokemon after this rival fight. So we hit in with Cheese Curd at level 39 to solo what is by far the easiest gym in the game yet. The plan is simple. Abuse Valerie's laughably bad Mawile, and really, what Mawile isn't laughably bad, to set up with Cheese Curd and then sweep her remaining 2 Pokemon. To do this, we've equipped Cheese Curd with leftovers to help her stay healthy, and all we have to do is click Power Up Punch 6 times and then sweep. It takes a little bit of time to get through Mawile since Valerie uses both of her Hyper Potions and Mawile maxes out her HP with Iron Defense. All she has to hit us with is non-stab crunches though, which could theoretically become a problem with several consecutive defense drops and crits, but even if that were to start happening, all we'd have to do is switch back out and in to set up again. We never end up in any real danger, maxing out our attack and then squishing both Mr. Mime and Sylveon underneath Cheese Curd's mighty mass. It probably wasn't essential to power up all 6 times, but when you're presented with such a golden opportunity, there's no reason at all not to. Easy gym. Next please. On our way to Dendemil Town, we catch a Basculin named Filet, who is apparently known to have a mild flavor, being the blue-striped variant, unlike her fatty red cousins. We don't currently have any particular plans for her, so she'll chill in the box until she's needed. Next up is Frost Cavern, where we catch our next team member, a Vanillite we named Float, who provides us with some much-needed type variety on our squad. This sends Rangoon back to the box for now as we head into Anastar City for our next gym and rival fight. First we square off against Serena, who has added a Vaporeon to her party since we last met. We lead with Scampy, who shrugs off a Fake Out and Disarming Voice to get the one-hit KO with Dark Pulse. This brings out Chestnut next, and once again, we really don't have a good answer for this thing. It hits every member of our team super effectively except for Candy Joe, and the fact that he's a Swirlix is really starting to catch up with him. He comes in on a surprisingly hard Brick Break, which I have no idea why Serena chose that move, but hey, and then gets off a Wish on the next turn while he is brought below half health with another Brick Break. With no Pokemon that can switch in, we have no choice but to go for Dazzling Gleam and risk a crit, which works out in our favor when we survive a Seed Bomb with only 4 HP and do over half his health and damage in return, before the Wish puts us back up over half health. We click Dazzling Gleam again, and Candy Joe comes through in the clutch, just barely managing a knockout on our rival's scariest Pokemon. With Vaporeon taking the field, we bring in Cakes on a resisted Muddy Water, which still does a surprising amount of damage. We move first in the next turn, hitting Vaporeon with a Night Slash, revealing that it should take us 3 hits to take him down. After tanking an Aurora Beam followed by a Quick Attack, it's looking like we should have no problem clicking Night Slash one more time and taking out Serena's Vaporeon, leaving us with only her always useless Absol to deal with. We click Night Slash, and my heart sinks when I see that apparently we were speed tied all along, and her Vaporeon is moving first this round. We still have a chance to survive, since we have 43 HP left and her first attack did 42 damage, but the attack high rolls, ending both Cakes' life and our chances of winning this run deathless. This hurts. A lot had to go wrong there for us to not realize that there was a speed tie and get hit by the right attacks in the right order, but we have been skating by on good luck for a long time now, and it finally ran out. Once again, looking at this footage, a simple Citrus Berry could have easily saved his life, and it's because of my mistakes that poor Cakes is gone. Losing our lone Dark type right before the Psychic Gym really smart too, but hopefully we can press on and avenge Cakes without anyone else on our team going down. Good night, sweet prince. We don't have time to mourn Cakes for long though, with the gym battle against Olympia coming almost immediately afterwards. We lead Scampy, our best shot at taking out her Psychic types quickly. Unfortunately, She sets up a light screen with her lead Sigilif, which means our Dark Pulse only does a little bit over half damage, letting her hit us with a Psychic before we manage to take her down. This brings out Slowking next, who also takes just over half her health and damage from a Dark Pulse before hitting us with a Yawn. Not wanting to be asleep when Meowstic comes in, we switch into Float, who is also hit with a Yawn. Go figure. This baits a power gem from Slowking though, so a switch back to Scampy means we only take a little bit more damage before taking her down. Finally is Meowstic, and we're at far too low of health to risk staying in with Scampy, so I switch out to Rangoon, who is back on the squad. He eats a massive Psychic, and so now we have to switch him into Stu, who tanks the next Psychic much better. We survive a non-crit Shadow Ball here, so we Yawn put Meowstic to sleep. This turns out to be the best play possible because Olympia decides to sneak in a greedy Calm Mind on this turn, which could have ended really poorly for us if we'd switched. On our next turn we bring in Cheese Curd, who is immune to Shadow Ball, while Meowstic falls asleep. Go for Bulldoze while Meowstic sleeps, ensuring we'll outspeed next turn. On another turn of sleep we hit Body Slam, which does less damage than I would have hoped for, revealing that another one will likely land her in healing range, which would be a massive problem. If only we still had a strong Dark-type physical attacker around, this would be much less stressful. The solution to this predicament is simple, though it does involve dodging a crit or getting a lucky third turn of sleep. We hit an extremely soft power-up punch, dealing a little bit of chip damage, but more importantly ensuring that she stays out of healing range and will be able to pick up the knockout on her next turn. Meowstic then wakes up and hits a Psychic, which mercifully does not get the crit because that would have meant the loss of our second teammate in as many fights. Having cheated death once again, Cheese Curd body slams the tiny Psychic cat into oblivion, ending the fight and earning us the 7th gym badge. Next we're back to Lumio City for some Team Flare stuff, and our first fight with surprise villain Lysander. I mean, who saw that coming? We'll skip that fight though, as well as the second of the 3 consecutive boss fights against this goof, because they're all pretty similar and the final one is the most challenging anyway. We leave the Cheese Curd against his Mienshao, and protect so it'll take 50% damage from whiffing on a high jump kick. Then we switch to Stu, taking a critical on the switch. Unfortunately that crit means we need to risk another one, as we heal up with Slack Off and Yawn to put Mienshao to sleep before taking the knockout at full HP. Next up is Pyroar, and based on the damage we took in the previous fight, I assume we'll be safe even if he lands a critical Dark Pulse, but I neglect to remember that Lysander has leveled him up twice, and we take over half our health on a hit that definitely would have killed Stu with a crit. We drown his Pyroar with the Surf, bringing in Honchkrow. Honchkrow is absolutely powerless against Cheese Curd, so we stay healthy and power ourselves up with a combination of Milk Drink and Power-Up Punch. I try to heal up one last time so we can use Protect and Leftovers to be just about full health when his Mega Gyarados comes in, but after Honchkrow lands 4 consecutive critical hits, I give up and land the final blow, bringing out Lysander's ace and Team Flare's last hope. We protect for one more turn to gain some HP back, then hit a Power-Up Punch for super effective damage and to reverse the effect of Intimidate, while we get hit with a strong Aqua Tail. We stall for another turn of recovery with Protect, and then end this storyline once and for all with a final Body Slam. We have a couple things to do before we head to the 8th gym, first of which is catching our next teammate, a Shuckle named Juice. Shuckles aren't eaten themselves, per se, but the Pokédex tells us that the juice from the berries they ferment in their shells is delicious, meaning that people out there are harassing poor Shuckles for their precious juices. Not that they have an easy time finding them, mind you. The reason I have no footage of me catching Juice is because it was taking so long that I stopped recording and forgot to turn it back on in time. For the record, Shuckle is a 5% encounter in Route 22 for Smash Rocks, which themselves only have a 40% chance of having a Pokemon inside. This makes your odds of finding a Shuckle roughly 2%, which can take a while. Juice here ought to be pretty useful for Toxic Stall and pivoting though, so hopefully he makes all that effort worthwhile. Before we get to the final gym though, we do have to go through the Rival Gauntlet on Route 12, where we fight Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor all in a row, with no party changes, no healing until after the second fight. As she has been so many times this run, Cheese Curd is our lead. Shauna's Delcatty is a Delcatty, and therefore poses basically zero threat. The most annoying thing she can do is hit us with Charm, so after she goes for a soft play rough on our Power Punch, we take the KO with a Body Slam and heal back up to full HP. Goodra goes down to 2 Body Slams, only managing to hit 1 Dragon Pulse in between, which leaves us at her Delphox, who goes for a greedy Calm Mind, letting us take her down unscathed with 2 more Body Slams, ending the fight about as smoothly as possible. Next up is Tierno, and we open with a Milk Drink to get back up to full HP after he hits us with an Acrobatics. On the next turn, we tank another Acrobatics before hitting back with a quad-effective Rock Tomb that just barely misses the KO on his Talonflame. Not wanting to risk activating Flame Body, especially since we can out-heal and now outspeed this bird, we click the 90% accurate Rock Tomb, which connects, cleanly knocking out Talonflame and bringing in the biggest threat of this rival trifecta, Tierno's Roserade. We stay in to hit a Body Slam before learning that a critical hit Petal Dance absolutely would have cost us our most valuable Pokemon, before switching into Confi in her first appearance back in quite a while, who is our only Grass-type resistance. She's absolutely dead to a crit, but with no other switch-ins, no other choice, we have to risk it. Roserade avoids hitting herself in confusion, and yet another Petal Dance comes in, ripping into Confi, who just barely manages to survive and hits a clutch Acrobatics, also avoiding activating Poison Point and going down in the process, taking out Roserade and bringing in Tierno's final Pokemon, Crawdaunt. His Crawdaunt meets with the same fate as our poor Cakes though, as we switch in Scampy on a resisted Crabhammer and take a clean hill with an Aura Sphere. This grants us a bit of respite, as Trevor kindly heals our friends before taking us on, starting with a lead matchup of Cheesecurd versus Raichu. He hits Thunderbolt for about a third of Cheesecurd's health while we go for a Rock Tomb to lower his speed. We decide to risk Static Paralysis to go for a Power Up Punch, which we do trigger while he hits a now basically useless Nuzzle. Luckily for us, Cheesecurd hits through Paralysis on the next turn and takes out Raichu with a Body Slam, after tanking one more Thunderbolt. Next out is Florges, so we bring in Juice for some Toxic Stall, completely forgetting what Misty Terrain does. We do hit an Infestation, Protect for turn to deal some chip damage, before deciding that we need to switch out into Scampy on another strong Moonblast. We stay in and hit a Water Pulse that confuses, while Trevor's Florges just goes for a Confide, lowering our special attack. We should still be able to get the knockout in 2 more hits, so we stay in for another Water Pulse, assuming she'll just set up the Misty Terrain again. We don't find this out though, as Florges hits herself in confusion, letting us land the final blow on the next turn. After that grueling fight, we arrive at the Ice Gym, where Cheesecurd takes out Wulfric's entire team with Power Up Punch and Brick Break, only pausing to heal with Milk Drink when necessary. This is aided by her Thick Fat ability having all ice damage, but it probably would have gone down this way regardless. Easy gym. And looking back, I can actually see I didn't even bother leveling up for this one either. After defeating Team Flare and collecting all 8 gym badges, the only thing left to do is prove that we are in fact the very best like no one ever was by defeating the Pokemon League. Before we do that though, I go collect what I thought was our final available encounter, when it turns out we actually could have picked up Finsoup the Carvanha here as soon as we got the Good Rod. Oops. His evolved form, Sharpedo, has been overfished because their fins are barbarically considered a delicacy, which has made them an endangered species. Although for an endangered species, he was still a hell of a lot easier to find than Juice was. Our last obstacle before the Pokemon League is the last rival fight with Serena, and as usual, she opens with her Meowstic. I've chosen to give Finsoup the nod in the starting lineup today, and things are off to a rocky start when she hits a critical Fake Out, which makes it a touch dicier to survive Disarming Voice the next turn, but it looks like we should have survived even a crit. I also always forget that Sharpedo isn't naturally that fast, and it's speed boost that really gives an advantage, although we do have Rough Skin. Honestly thought we'd probably be moving first there. Either way though, Finsoup takes down his first on-screen victim with a super effective Crunch, bringing out Altaria next. This is an absolute best case scenario for us, since Finsoup has Ice Beam, which is quite effective against Altaria, netting his second kill of the fight. Chestnut comes in next, and we've never really had a good answer for this strange armadillo thing. We switch into Confi, fresh off her excellent performance against Tierno, who resists the Seed Bomb and looks poised to take the kill with a quad effective Brave Bird. All she has to do is move first. Unfortunately, for our second longest tenured team member, she is, ultimately, a Farfetch'd, and her genetic deficiencies have come home to roost, as it were. Poor little Confi is outsped by Chestnut and goes down to a neutral Brick Break, ending her life and her time on the team. It was a warrior's death though, and it's always better to go down holding your leek than to be cooked with it. Sleep well. Confi's brave sacrifice grants us the safe switch to Candy Joe, who avenges his fallen comrade with 2 dazzling gleams, bringing in Vaporeon. Cheesecurd once again proves why she's the MVP, taking a critical hit Muddy Water on the switch-in and proceeding to easily outlast Vaporeon before knocking out Absol for the last time to win the fight. With that, we've arrived at the Pokemon League, ready to take on our final 5 challengers. Our journey is taking its toll on the whole team, but we stand here ready to take on anything that dares get in our way. First, we decide to take on Seabold, who I figure is going to be the hardest for us to beat. He opens to Clawitzer, who is major trouble for the vast majority of our team, and I send in Candy Joe. Candy Joe tanks a Water Pulse that thankfully doesn't confuse and fires back with a strong Thunderbolt. Knowing we'll have to switch on the next turn anyway, I have him set up a light screen after taking another Water Pulse. Doing this in reverse order may have been safer, but oh well. We bring in Cheesecurd, who tanks a now soft Water Pulse and then knocks out Clawitzer with a return. This brings in Barbaracle, who threatens with Cross Chop, so we switch to Stu, who avoids the attack on the switch-in. Stu tanks an X-Scissor, which does some Rocky Helmet chip, and then fires off a strong Psychic to bring Barbaracle below half health. I bring Cheesecurd back in on another X-Scissor, figuring she'll be able to get the knockout with Bulldoze. She comes up a bit shy though, but is still somehow bulky enough to survive a Cross Chop. I hit a Power-Up Punch, forgetting that Seabold is definitely going to heal, so we're forced to switch out on the next turn anyways. We bring in Scampy on another Cross Chop whiff, and then Barbaracle with an Aura Sphere. This brings in Gyarados, so we have no way to hit super effectively now that Candy Joe is hurt. So if Seabold plays this right, he could sweep our entire team. Lucky for us though, he greeds 3 Dragon Dances in between using a full restore, so we only have to dodge a crit on 1 Earthquake before we can get the knockout. If that had crit though, there's a very real chance we would have lost right here. Last is Starmie, so we bring in Stu, who resists Psychic. Stu heals with Slack Off, puts Starmie to sleep with Yawn, then we bring in Juice or some good old fashioned stall. Between Infestation, Well-Timed Protect, and using Toxic while Starmie's setting up Light Screen, Juice doesn't take a single tick of damage before we switch back to Stu for the final blow. After being forced to take some major chances earlier in the fight, it felt really nice to just sit back and methodically take out Seabold's last Mon with very little risk. Continuing with our chosen method of taking on the harder fights first, next up is Wixrum. Once again we lead with Cheese Curd as he opens with Klefki. We power up Punch a few times while he sets up spikes and hits a soft dazzling gleam. Flash Cannon hits a little harder, but we heal up with Milk Drink just fine during the same turn as Wixrum uses a full restore. After power up punching one final time, we get hit with a Torment and take out Klefki with a Brick Break. This brings an Aegis Slash, and we should be able to live a Sacred Sword unless we get hit with both a critical hit and high roll simultaneously. This doesn't happen and we hit a massive Bulldoze to bring him below half health. This is where the Torment starts to kick in though, and we're forced to go for a Milk Drink on the next turn. What follows is a few really annoying turns of healing up and trying to protect King Shield before we finally manage to land the finishing blow with just 9 HP left. We bring in Stu, who takes quite a bit of damage from spikes and a Power Gem. Probopass hits a discharge, but luckily it's a Probopass, so we slack off before hitting a Surf. This puts Probopass in healing range, so we play the healing back and forth game a little bit longer before we yawn to put Probopass to sleep and switch out to Candy Joe. Candy Joe takes a bit of damage from spikes and discharge while Probopass falls asleep. He sets up a Wish while Probopass snoozes for a guaranteed first turn, then knocks him out with a Flamethrower. This heals Candy Joe back up to full HP and brings in Scizor. We don't have any good answers to Scizor on our team, so we're forced to risk a critical Iron Head in order to land the one-hit KO with Flamethrower. It's a good thing Candy Joe is at full health because he couldn't have survived with much more than he took. It was another close one, but we survived, meaning we're halfway through the Elite Four with not much more challenge standing in our way before the Pokemon Champion. Second last is Drasna, and we send in Cheese Curd to take out her Dragalge with 3 Bulldozes. We do get poisoned by her second Sludge Bomb, but at this point it's already too late. With her lone Poison type out of the picture, it's time for the Candy Joe show. There are some shenanigans with Wish and Light Screen involved to keep him healthy against Noivern, but the end result is Candy Joe cleanly takes out all 3 of Drasna's remaining dragons, meaning we only have 1 Elite Four member left to go. Since our team is half water types, it shouldn't surprise you to know that she goes down even easier than Drasna. Stu takes out Pyroar with a single Surf. Finsoup takes out Chandelure with a single Waterfall, Cheese Curd takes out Talonflame with a single Rock Tomb, and Scampi takes out Torkoal with a single Water Pulse, and just like that, it's on to the champion. Diantha leads with her Hawlucha, and I counter with Stu. I assume we can tank an X-Scissor, but she just goes for a greedy Swords Dance and we take her down in 1 Psychic. I switch out to Cheese Curd for her Auroras, who just sets up a Light Screen. We power up Punch for just under half her health while she sets up a Reflect. This proves to be incredibly stupid on Diantha's part, since we just use a 4 times effective Brick Break on the next turn to take out her Dinosaur and both her screens in 1 blow. This brings out Goodra, who hit with another power up Punch while she retaliates with a Limp Fire Blast. We get a nasty shock on the next turn when we power up Punch again, before Goodra reminds me that she has Focus Blast and I completely forgot. Unsurprisingly, it misses. We almost certainly could have survived, but that didn't feel great. Not wanting to repeat that particular mistake, we take her down on the next turn with a Brick Break. Next up is Tyrantrum, who we bring down to low health with another Brick Break before he deals just under half our health and damage with Head Smash, fainting to the recoil damage. This brings in Gourgeist, who goes down to 2 Rock Tombs, leaving Diantha with nothing but her Mega Evolving Gardevoir. Fortunately, I have a plan. I bring in Juice, who can Toxic and Infestation stall her into healing range, which grants us a free switch into Finsoup, who's free to take the kill with a Poison Jab, netting us a deathless fight against the champion, winning the entire run. Or at least that's what I thought I'd be writing. Remember 2 pages of script ago when I mentioned that I've been consistently surprised by Finsoup failing to outspeed things? His minus speed nature doesn't help much, but you'd still expect a Torpedo Shark to be faster than this. He eats a massive Moonblast in the face, marking death number 3 and throwing a major wrench into my plans. I bring in Scampi, hoping she can tank a Thunderbolt and deal some damage back with a Water Pulse, but we never get to find out when she takes a crit, ending her journey as well. We bring in Candy Joe next, who takes a massive Moonblast while he sets up a Light Screen. Another Moonblast brings him down to low health before he can make a Wish. We switch into Cheese Curd on the next turn, who tanks the Moonblast as well as can be expected from this mega monster, and heals up to a respectable amount of health from Candy Joe's Wish. We start trading off Rock Tombs for Moonblasts and try to stay healthy, but when the Light Screen wears off, it's clear that we're fighting a losing battle. Cheese Curd fights hard until the very end, but eventually she succumbs to her wounds, and Diantha's Gardevoir has claimed her 3rd victim. With her team broken, battered, and dead, Stu takes the field as our last best hope for salvaging the run amid this unmitigated disaster of a final battle. I click Surf and hold my breath as her Thunderbolt lands, hoping and praying not to see a critical hit. And Stu survives, barely hanging on before firing off a Surf, knocking Gardevoir out, putting us into the Hall of Fame, and winning the entire run. Whew, that got extremely dicey towards the end there. I wasn't quite sure we were going to be able to pull it out. I think Candy Joe probably would have outsped Gardevoir after that many speed drops and been able to get one more hit in, but I'm really glad we never had to find out. Obviously there were a lot of misplays against Gardevoir, since my whole plan was predicated on the faulty premise of Finsoup outspeeding, but I think we recovered about as well as could be expected after that. It definitely would have made more sense to stall for leftovers recovery more with juice and also to hit another toxic on the heel, but I kind of tunnel visioned myself into this epic one-shot with Fin Soup to win it all, which, as you can see, didn't pan out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to let me know by liking it and subscribing to the channel. This was my first Nuzlocke, as I'm sure is obvious, but it probably won't be the last. Let me know all the plays I made wrong so I can learn from my mistakes, and I'll see you next time.